David, let's talk about these experiments with cymatics. This is absolutely astounding what was discovered here. But first, we probably need just a crash course in cymatics, what they're all about.
Yeah, that's easy enough to do. I mean, interesting thing to know, first of all, is that cymatics is spelt C-Y, and C-Y is from the Greek meaning wave or waveform. So in other words, cymatics is about seeing sound waves in sand or mycopodium or whatever you want to use, perhaps very sensitive dust. So effectively, we use that to see what sound waves look like, particularly at sacred sites. And that's the key to my argument, in the sense that I wanted to see exactly what was going on in these places. And I've worked with a lot of people over the past 3 or 4 decades to kind of get a sense of what's going on in the sacred place, and gradually built up a portfolio of images and of data from these places. And all I could say is that what began to happen on a regular basis was that we saw language appearing in the sound wave patterns at the sacred sites we went to. But here's the big thing: it was the language. It was the language of the place at the time. It wasn't just any old language. So, for instance, you go to a Celtic site, you get Celtic knotwork, and you get Celtic symbols appearing in pictorial form in the dust. You go to India, you get the Om symbol occurring on a regular basis, and various other Indian symbols. And then finally, in Egypt, we ended up with hieroglyphs, which was simply staggering. And that's kind of what underscores my thesis, is that these places were constructed in order for the hero, whoever that person is, to bring script, to bring written language to humanity. So that actually language in that sense is not an invention by humans. It is actually an environmental response to our home planet. And that's what I found quite so fabulous.
It's beyond fabulous. So let me just see if I understand this. So let's say you go into a cathedral in Ireland, and you have a membrane, let's say like over a drum, and you place.
That's right. You put a speaker into the drum, or it can be. Quite often we've used elements that are there at the place. Things like fonts or baptismal bowls. You then place a membrane over that, and you scatter the membrane with the dust. And then what happens is, as the sound emerges from the speaker, it pushes the sound out of the way. And of course, when you get to look at the sound, you get to see that it's taken a particular pictorial form. And of course, this is extraordinary, because the sound we're throwing at the sound is actually the resonant frequencies of these places, which is
right.
It's a very, very dramatic outcome.
So you're getting a Celtic symbol if you're in a Celtic cathedral, or if you're in the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid in Giza, you're getting a hieroglyph.
Exactly. My great friend John Stuart Reid actually performed these experiments a number of years ago, and I will never forget his face as he emerged from the Great Pyramid. In fact, it made me laugh, actually. He was so stunned by what had happened. And he'd gone in and he'd actually used the sarcophagus in the King's Chamber, which is a very short sarcophagus, actually. If you look at the size of it, you'd think that the people in Egypt in ancient times were incredibly short. And that itself begs the question, was the sarcophagus really a sarcophagus? Was it really used by a physical king for the interment, after his death? And to my mind, the question, it sort of hangs on a knife edge. Because what John discovered was that the the sarcophagus itself is exactly the standing waveform of the interior of the king's chamber. The standing waveform being the place where all the frequencies, they mix and they meld, and this is the one silent place, as it were, in the chamber when all of this is going on. So it's kind of like the route to eternity, in a sense. It's kind of like the liftoff spot for the soul, or for the consciousness, for its transformation from everyday waking state into a much wider sense of where it's going, what it could be. And what's interesting is that having placed the membrane over a speaker in the sarcophagus and sprayed the membrane with mycopodium dust, and I believe John used very, very fine sand from just outside the pyramid, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. He then, through the internal frequencies of the pyramid, going all the way up from the bottom of the Grand Gallery, right up to the top of the Grand Gallery, to the King's Chamber itself. And by the way, the frequencies in the pyramid are absolutely uncanny. They are whole numbers. They are perfect. It's all I can say is that the pyramid is full of the impossible. And this is a question that Egyptologists are going to struggle to answer, is how on earth did they achieve it when we, with all of our technology today, cannot achieve it? When he started getting these shapes, we got hieroglyphic forms, and I have to say they were very well defined, and they were quite astonishing.
And which hieroglyphic forms in particular? Was it always the same one? And what was the meaning of the glyph?
One case we got the Eye of Ra, which is a circle with a dot in it, and Ra being the great creator god of Egypt from the very earliest days. We had various others, the Ankh, which of course is the famous Egyptian cross with the teardrop on top of it, which is the hieroglyph for life, meaning life. And we, at one point, John got the pharaonic head. You remember the famous mask that Tutankhamun wears, the famous
yes.
gold mask with the gold and blue stripes?
Yes.
We had that, which was astonishing. Now, you've got to imagine the sound is ebbing, it's throbbing, it's ebbing to and fro. So what you're getting is the fluidity of the sound moving in and out of shape, out of form. So it's almost become so fluid that it's almost a living, breathing thing. That's what's so uncanny about this. And of course, finally, we ended up with the Eye of Horus, which is the most famous of Egyptian symbols, the double Eye of Horus at one point. And it wasn't until about 2 or 3 years later that I was talking to a very great, much-missed friend of mine, the late Professor Christine El-Mahdi, who looked at the photographs. Now, she was the head of the British School of Egyptology here in the UK. And when she saw the images, she fainted. She was out cold. I actually had to run to my kitchen to get a glass of cold water to revive her.
Oh,
and
my
said,
Lord.
Is everything okay? I said, is everything okay? Are you okay? Should I call a doctor or something? And she said, no. She said, I'm absolutely stunned. She said, I've never seen anything like this in my life. She said, you do realize what you have here? And I said, it's the double Eye of Horus. And she said to me, no. It's not just the double Eye of Horus. It's called the Neb-er-Jur. She said, at this particular period in ancient Egyptian history, it was a totally forbidden hieroglyph. It is the secret holy name of their god. And she said, you've got it there in the sound patterns. So there we are.
My Lord.
The divine was talking to us.
Not to put too fine a